Most of us are in a state of insufficient cellular energy, which is an acronym known as ICE. And we just don't make enough of that cellular currency for energy called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And
Mhm.
right, and you might remember like back in middle school or high school that you had biology with the powerhouse of the cell was the mitochondria, right? And it
Mhm.
made ATP to power the body, right? And so that's what the mitochondria is. Now there is potentially a lot more than one in certain cells. Energy energy dependent, like highly energy dependent cells, like heart cells or brain cells, they might have up to 5,000 mitochondria in one cell.
Mm.
So it's there's actually a lot more mitochondria than you might think in the body, and it's super critical. And when we're not making enough energy and we're in that ice state, then there's problems that come with that. We feel chronic fatigue, we feel brain fog, we have hypertonic muscles, we're sore all the time, we're getting into states of chronic inflammation, oxidation, and glycation, blood sugar damage. And we're actually rapidly aging. We're aging faster biologically than
Yep.
chronologically. So like our telomeres are shortening, our sirtuin genes aren't activated. We have methylation errors in our DNA, and all of this is happening. And then we have a much higher likelihood towards almost every disease.
Mm.
And so all of this is happening with mitochondrial dysfunction comes metabolic dysfunction. So, I mean, that's what's at cost here, or what's at play when we don't have enough of that energy. So mitochondria are just so critical to
Mm.
our health, our well-being, and our overall energy for life. That's why I talk about the energy formula.
Yeah, very cool. Do you have anything? Obviously, this is a very broad question, but do you have any kind of quick tips or hacks for us to improve our mitochondrial health? And then I know you mentioned telomeres, what we can be doing to improve the health of our telomeres as well.
Yeah, 100%. So with mitochondria, there's several things. One you might have heard of with cold plunges, cold showers. Obviously, that's going to help with mitochondrial health. And then you
Mm-hmm.
might have heard about even better is contrasting, where you're going from one extreme to another. The
Yeah.
delta, the temperatures between the two are even greater. So going from a hot sauna to a cold plunge, things like that,
Mm.
like the old polar bear club where these guys would go from the sauna to like a little hole in the ice kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's that kind of idea. That's an even greater delta. And we're used to being thermoregulated in our society, but that's not normal for our bodies,
Mm.
that we're always at 68 to 72 degrees. Like we
Yeah.
have
Right.
very little, like, thermal difference going on there. Like where in history, we might have, gone from really extreme cold temperatures to really extreme heats. And, even just day to night, sometimes we would experience that. So,
Yep.
that's one thing that's going to, this stuff that I'm talking about is resilience. So it's actually hormetic stressors. Hormesis is challenging the body and creating that adaptation through the agitation. It's kind of like the obstacle is the way for the body.
Mm-hmm.
There's the growth mindset that's very similar, like that stoic mindset, where the obstacle is the way. It's very
Yep.
similar to your body. That there's a bell curve of eustress and distress, where there's good stress and bad stress, and you have a Goldilocks zone in the middle of that bell curve of like the ideal amount of stress that helps grow your stress bucket, allostatic
Mm-hmm.
load. It's called allostatic load. So that stress bucket can actually grow, and your capacity to deal with stress can grow. But if you do too much at once, it overflows.
Mm.
And then it becomes a distress.
Yep.
So you only want to have eustress, a positive stress, and think of it as like that good friend that challenges you. Come on, buddy, or the guy at the gym that's spotting you. Come on, come on. That's
Yep.
eustress. So that's that scenario. So, and there's times when you stack all these things that a eustress might turn into a distress. Like if you were
Mm.
sick, it's probably not a good idea to go do the cold plunge.
Yeah.
But there are supplements that help with mitochondrial health as well. Some of my favorites. I mean, you might think right off the bat things that increase NAD, Like NMN is one of my favorites. I like it a lot better than NR.
Hmm.
It just seems to be more effective. Things like PQQ and CoQ10, those help with the electron transport chain. Um, but some of my favorite ones really is the polyphenols.
Mm.
And they're a group of compounds that are xenohormetics that actually protect the plants. They protect, like the grapes, for example, that resveratrol. And the more
Yep.
dry the climate, the more hot the sun, the arid the soil, it actually makes that plant tougher, and they have more of the polyphenols. So you actually do want to get like wine or whatever from
Hmm.
the tougher climates. That's where like that dry farm wine kind of thing comes in.
Yep.
But a lot of these things are caloric restriction mimetics, and they activate the sirtuin genes because it's that hormesis idea. So these compounds are some of the most famous compounds in food, where you have like a lot of blue zone foods revolve around
Hmm.
these: EGCG in green tea, chlorogenic acid in coffee, transresveratrol in wine, pterostilbene in blueberries, quercetin in onions and apples, apigenin in parsley. And so what's cool is most of these things increase NAD levels. And as we age, NAD gets lower and lower and lower.
Hmm.
Another thing that's happening is as we age is NAD gets consumed faster and faster and faster. So it's a double whammy. And it's actually
Mm.
consumed faster from CD38, which is the enzyme NADase that breaks down NAD. So what you want to do is find ways to boost NAD and also inhibit CD38 so NAD hangs around longer. And
Got it.
NAD is part of that Krebs cycle, the citric acid cycle, that crank
Hmm.
that's creating ATP. And one of the last stops, you have NAD to NADH ratio that's really critical for creating energy and for vitality.
Mm.
So we found that boosting NAD cellularly is really a way to enhance health and longevity. And so
Mm.
you can do that with like IV NAD. That's probably the best way.
Yep.
Makes you feel nauseous for 3 hours. It's not the best feeling thing. There is intranasal NAD, which I don't have a ton of experience with, but that could be a good way to deliver NAD. But
Hmm.
orally, NAD isn't going to work that well. So that's where things
Yeah.
like NMN might be better. And then taking some of these other ingredients could definitely support that, like the polyphenols. And there's a couple polyphenols that actually do work on the other side of the equation I was talking about with inhibiting CD38, like quercetin and apigenin. They
Mm.
actually do that. So they're doing the double whammy. And fisetin has actually been shown to be potentially the best when they looked at 10 different polyphenols. So fisetin is from strawberries as polyphenol. And there was a study that looked at 10 different polyphenols, and that one actually came out the best in terms of efficacy for anti-aging, increasing NAD, et cetera. So that's one I would look at. So probably my two favorites for one, increasing NAD is fisetin,
Hmm.
and then for two, inhibiting CD38 is probably apigenin. So those are probably like the two rock stars. You've heard a lot about
Yeah.
resveratrol and pterostilbene and quercetin and all these, but I really feel like those are the two rock stars right now is fisetin and apigenin.